They say time forgets nothing. But what if time itself keeps secrets? It began long before our time, in a world now lost to dust and silence. The story you're about to hear was almost erased from history. But some secrets refuse to stay buried. This is TimeVault.
The origin of myth, Plato and his revelation. The world has always been full of mysteries, but few have captured the human imagination as powerfully as the legends of Atlantis. This name has become synonymous with a lost civilization, incredible technology, and a tragic fate. And although today we perceive Atlantis as part of mythology, its origins go back to one of the most elegant thinkers of antiquity, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. It was thanks to him, around 360 BC, that detailed accounts of this enigmatic island nation were first laid out in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, which have come down to us over the millennium. Plato, whose works formed the foundations of Western philosophy, didn't simply invent Atlantis. He claimed that the story came to him from Egyptian priests who told it to Solon, the great Finnish lawgiver and Plato's ancestor. Thus, Plato positioned his story not as fantasy, but as ancient knowledge passed down from generation to generation. He presented Atlantis as more than just a myth, as a memory of the first, once thriving state. Describing Atlantis, Plato painted a picture of incredible power and grandeur. He claimed it was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which today we know as the Strait of Gibraltar in the Mediterranean. This geographical designation immediately placed Atlantis in the uncharted waters of the Atlantic Ocean, opening up scope for conjecture and exploration. In scale, according to Plato, Atlantis surpassed Libya and Asia Minor combined, indicating its colossal size and originality. The philosopher paid meticulous attention to the details of its construction and layout. He described the capital of Atlantis as a marvel of engineering and beauty, with 9 rings encircling the central part of the city. They served not only for defense but also for navigation, creating a complex network of sea routes. In the center stood the towers of temples dedicated to Poseidon, the chief deity of Atlantis, and shining towers of ancient black stone, likely clad or constructed from unusual minerals that gave them a distinctive luster. But this story of greatness also has a tragic ending. It was reported that, as a result of a catastrophe, Atlantis disappeared in a single day and a single night due to earthquakes and floods. This sudden and catastrophic event wiped an entire civilization from the face of the earth, leaving behind only legends and fragments of memory. Plato's words, spoken in stone history, still serve as a warning about the fragility of human achievements in the face of the elements. Ultimately, thanks to Plato, Atlantis not only remained in human memory, but also inspired countless quests and explorations that continued to this day. His texts laid the foundation for all subsequent Atlantology, giving rise to hypotheses about the origin, culture, and fate of this lost world. In one day and one night, we see the island of Atlantis lost beneath the sea. A geographical riddle. Where to look for Atlantis? After Plato introduced the world to the image of a powerful island nation, the question of its exact location became one of history's most elegant mysteries. Over the past 200 years, more than 25 different hypotheses have been put forward to help identify potential traces of Atlantis. This search has become a veritable intellectual odyssey, touching various corners of the globe and stimulating both scholars and enthusiasts. One of the most popular hypotheses about the Atlantic Ocean suggests that Atlantis may have been located in the area of today's Azores Islands. Underwater plateaus and possible traces of ancient structures in this area have recently been considered potential evidence of a sunken continent. The idea that Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules seemed most logical for this vast body of water, which gave the entire ocean its name. The Mediterranean Sea has also become the arena for the search for Atlantis. Particular attention has been paid to the island of Santorini, where the catastrophic eruption of the Thera volcano occurred around 1600 BC. This event destroyed the flourishing Minoan civilization, aptly echoing Plato's description of the land of Atlantis in a single day and a single night. Scholars suggest that the memory of this natural disaster may have inspired the myth. Another theory takes us to the Caribbean, specifically the Bahamas. In 1968, unusual underwater structures dubbed the Bimini Causeway were discovered off the coast of Bimini. These smooth stone blocks, laid on the seabed, sparked heated debate. Are they uplifted formations or the remains of ancient human structures? These discoveries have fueled interest in the Caribbean as a possible destination for the sunken civilization. Among the more exotic theories, Antarctica has been proposed. This theory is based on the crustal shift theory, which posits that Antarctica may have been an ancient continent located in more temperate latitudes before shifting south and becoming submerged. In this paradigm, Atlantis appears as prehistoric material that was destroyed and buried under Antarctic ice. Finally, one cannot ignore the hypothesis linking Atlantis to the Sahara. Specifically, the geological structure known as the Eye of the Sahara, or the Richat structure. Its near-perfect circular shape and concentric rings precisely match Plato's description of the capital of Atlantis surrounded by 9 rings. This coincidence, although seemingly improbable at first glance, allows for the possibility that the vast expanses of water described by Plato once existed in this now desert region. Scientific evidence adds intrigue to this geographic quest. Geological research confirms that sudden rises and falls of the continental shelf occur in many regions of the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean. Remarkably, many of these events date back approximately 12,000 years. This period corresponds to the end of the last ice age and, crucially, to the widespread global memory of a great flood. Perhaps it was these massive natural changes that inspired the stories of sunken lands that later formed the basis of the myth of Atlantis. Thus, the search for Atlantis is not simply a pursuit of legend, but also an attempt to correlate ancient traditions with the actual geological and climatic processes shaping our planet. Technology and architecture, knowledge that should not exist. Plato's descriptions of Atlantis present it not simply as a powerful landscape, but also as a hub of advanced knowledge and technology, far ahead of its time. He mentions that the Atlanteans possessed great power and knowledge surpassing that of the world then inhabited. This brief but intriguing remark raises questions about the nature of their achievements, especially in the written sources mentioned beyond Plato's dialogues. Legends of antediluvian civilizations, which abound in the cultural heritage of a wide variety of peoples, often complement Plato's description, though they lack direct scientific confirmation. These myths feature astonishing technologies, from resonance and anti-gravity systems to air crystals and stone-cutting techniques with incredible powers. Of course, this information is more mythological than historical, but it fuels curiosity about what this superior knowledge might have been. Particularly noteworthy are archaeological finds scattered around the world that modern scholars still cannot explain based on known ancient technologies. Megalithic structures such as Baalbek in Lebanon, Pumapunku in Bolivia, and Sacsayhuaman in Peru are striking examples. Here we see stones weighing hundreds of tons, laid with brilliant, almost jeweler-like precision. The blocks are so tightly fitted together that even a knife blade cannot be inserted between them, and the workmanship on their surfaces indicates the use of tools and techniques that would seem to have evolved much later.
Mainstream archaeology explains these phenomena by labor-intensive methods using primitive tools, but the scale and precision of the work often cast doubt on such explanations. Some researchers, including Charles Hapgood, the author of the crustal shift hypothesis, have proposed that ancient cultures may have inherited some of their technology and knowledge from a certain ancestral civilization that was destroyed by a global catastrophe. In this hypothesis, Atlantis could play a role as such a source of knowledge. Another curious fact is the existence of certain architectural and astronomical structures separated by thousands of kilometers and seemingly unrelated. For example, the Great Pyramid of Giza, ancient temples in India, and pyramids in Mexico all exhibit almost indeterminate proportions and, fortunately, precise astronomical orientations. This suggests the possible existence of a primary source of knowledge that spread throughout the world before or after some global event. Perhaps the Atlanteans, possessing knowledge surpassing that of the world at that time, were the bearers of this universal architectural and scientific research. Thus, if Plato is right, Atlantis became a civilization, and its technological and architectural achievements could explain many archaeological mysteries that remain unanswered. The question remains, was this knowledge the fruit of independent Atlantean development, or was it the legacy of even more ancient and unknown cultures?
Doom, the disaster, the vanished earth. The fate of Atlantis, as the ancient legend abbreviates, was sealed by a monumental catastrophe that, in a single day and night, toppled the mighty island nation into the depths of the ocean. This event, described by Plato, reveals striking parallels with geological data and mythological accounts from various cultures around the world, pointing to the possibility of a real cataclysm on a planetary scale. Geological studies of the Earth confirm that between approximately 10,800 and 9,600 BC, the planet experienced a series of massive cataclysms. This time period corresponds to the so-called Younger Dryas, a period of sudden cooling that resulted in massive floods across the Earth. Such rapid climate change, shifts in tectonic plates, and rising sea levels could pose a threat to entire regions, possibly including Atlantis. One of the leading scientific hypotheses explaining such global changes is the impact of a large meteorite or comet. A collision with such a celestial body could have caused colossal tsunamis, reaching heights of several hundred meters, and powerful tectonic shifts. These phenomena, if ultimately exposed, could have led to the submersion of large tracts of land and the complete destruction of civilizations. Imagine the scene. The sky is torn apart by a fireball, the earth trembles, and then giant waves crash onto the coast, sweeping away all life.
It is noteworthy that myths about the Great Flood are present in virtually all cultures of the world, from the ancient Sumerians and Babylonians to the Mayans and Native Americans. These legends, originating in various corners of the planet and not directly connected to one another, contained distinct elements. The earth trembled, fire fell from the sky, a wave covered all living things, the gods were angry, water rose to the highest mountains. Such uniformity in the narratives suggests that these myths are not based on fiction, but rather on memories of the beginning of a catastrophic event experienced by humanity. If we accept geological evidence, astronomical hypotheses, and the universality of flood myths, the following picture emerges. Atlantis may be a possible civilization that flourished during the late Ice Age. Its destruction was not simply a localized incident, but a global natural cataclysm caused either by the impact of a foreign body or by abrupt climate change, or their consequences leading to global floods and tectonic shifts. This catastrophe not only destroyed Atlantis, but also forever changed the face of the Earth, leaving a deep imprint on humanity's collective memory in the form of legends of a lost world and the Great Flood. Thus, the legend of Atlantis may be more than just a philosopher's invention, a coded message from the distant past, a warning about the weakness of civilization in the face of powerful forces of nature.
The legacy of Atlantis, traces in ancient cultures. After the catastrophic events that led to the disappearance of Atlantis, the world as we knew it changed forever. However, the legends and myths of many peoples of the world indicate that the knowledge and culture of this mysterious civilization did not vanish without a trace. Thus, like seeds scattered by the wind after the storm, fragments of the Atlantean heritage could have been preserved and passed down through the generations of those who survived the cataclysm. Many ancient cultures tell of certain teachers who came from the sea, whose appearance marked a new stage in human development. These mysterious beings, seemingly based on principles and skills far ahead of their time, became catalysts for the emergence of the first civilizations in various corners of the planet. In ancient Egypt, the teacher was Thoth. This god, often depicted with the head of an ibis, is considered the patron of wisdom, books, science, and magic. The Egyptians incorporated writing, the creation of astronomy and mathematics, and the establishment of energy and rituals into it. Its emergence is associated with the pre-dynastic period of Egypt,
when, according to myths, the earth was plunged into chaos and then received knowledge from gods coming from without. The story of Thoth aptly echoes stories of bearers of ancient knowledge who emerged after a global catastrophe.
American continents, separated by 2,000 kilometers from the Old World, legends of teacher gods also survive. In Central America, this was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, god of the Aztecs and Mayans. He came from the east, taught people to cultivate the land, build cities, and created the calendar and writing. His image is associated with enlightenment and peace. According to Oannes, he was the bearer of the highest knowledge and civilizing skills. In South America, among the Incas and other Andean peoples, Viracocha was revered. This white-skinned god, who came from the Pacific Ocean, taught people to build, create irrigation systems, work metals, and implement laws. He was revered as a creator and educator who ushered in the golden age of their culture. What is striking about these myths is the similarity in the descriptions of these teachers. They were often depicted as tall, fair-skinned beings with eyes shining like stars or possessing a special wisdom in their gaze. They came from the water or distant lands, bringing peace, order, and knowledge that were vital to humanity's survival and development after a global catastrophe. These figures taught people agriculture, the construction of monumental structures, the development of astronomical knowledge, and systematic letters and laws, effectively reinventing civilization.
Scientists and researchers suggest that these universal myths are not mere coincidences, but a kind of cultural memory of humanity. They may be distant echoes of distinct events when the surviving members of a highly advanced civilization, perhaps the Atlanteans, as leaders of their world, dispersed across the earth and became mentors to less developed peoples. They brought with them remnants of ancient knowledge and technologies that helped revive civilization and laid the foundations for the development of great ancient empires. Thus, the legacy of Atlantis, although not in the form of sunken cities, in the form of wisdom and knowledge, continued to influence the fate of humanity for millennia.
Modern traces. Atlantis in science and memory. The myth of Atlantis, originating in Plato's ancient Greek tales, continues to captivate minds in the nascent 1st century, resonating both in scientific inquiry and in collective cultural memory. Despite the passage of millennia since its first mention and the lack of archaeological evidence, the idea of a lost continent has lost none of its appeal, stimulating new research and increasing significance. Modern scientific technologies and approaches require significant resources to study this eternal mystery. One of the most intriguing observations is the use of advanced remote sensing and oceanography. For example, in 2005, satellite images obtained by NASA drew attention to anomalous underwater structures near Bimini and Cuba. These formations, with their aptly placed geometric shapes, sparked intense interest and sparked debate about their possible artificial origin. Although no definitive conclusions have been reached, such discoveries are based on the hypothesis of the existence of ancient, now submerged objects that could be associated with former prehistoric civilizations. These studies suggest that the ocean depths still hold many unsolved mysteries, securely guarded, that could change our understanding of ancient history.
Beyond material resources and geological anomalies, genetic research also contributes to this debate. DNA analysis of ancient civilizations in both North Africa and the Americas has revealed common genetic roots that, according to scientists, may have spread approximately 12,000 years ago. This time period is remarkably consistent with the period Plato described as the time of the radiance and advance of Atlantis, as well as with the subsequent cataclysmic eras that ended the last ice age. If these genetic links do indeed point to waves of migration from a complex source, this could provide further evidence for the existence of a highly developed culture that survived the catastrophe that led to its spread and preservation worldwide. Some geophysicists, such as Richard Freund and Robert Sokol, are actively pursuing the idea that Atlantis could have been a legitimate civilization during the late Ice Age. They suggest that this civilization was likely destroyed by a massive flood caused by a sudden climate change or geological processes. According to this hypothesis, the memory of Atlantis has come down to us not as fiction, but as a transformed legend, a collective recollection of a monumental catastrophe that wiped the face of the earth. This is consistent with the myths of the Great Flood found in cultures around the world, from Sumer to the Maya.
However, there is another, more metaphorical understanding of Atlantis. According to her, Atlantis is not a specific geographical location, but rather a symbol, a global archetype of lost knowledge, the highest point and pride of humanity. It is the image of an ideal but doomed society, which reached the peak of its development, but then fell victim to paranormal vices and phenomena. In this decade, Atlantis has become a universal phenomenon of the cyclical nature of civilizations, the fragility of progress, and the eternal search for a lost paradise. It continues to inspire artists, writers, and scientists, leading them to understand the past and anticipate the future, to reflect on our achievements and the threats posed by economic development. Perhaps it is precisely this duality, both the search for material evidence and the understanding of symbolic meaning, that lies the enduring secret of the Atlantis myth's pervasiveness.
It was just one story, hidden inside the vault of time.